and I was put in an orphan home. Matter of fact, what happened was my grandfather used to always come to the side of the house and scare everybody. And I took the 12 gauge shotgun, and I was sent to Castell, New York, and that's where I met Mike Tyson. At was in the same orphan home.
Iron Mike Tyson. In the mid 1980s and the early 90s, he was built as the baddest man on the planet. Mike Tyson was the biggest superstar in all of sports, right next to Michael Jordan. Now, y'all have heard a lot of stories about Mike Tyson. This story right here, y'all, this story is crazy. This story is gonna let you know exactly why Mike Tyson was the way that he was, but Mike Tyson didn't have nothing on some of the kids that he grew up around in this horrible children's orphanage that he lived in for years. Now, this story I'm gonna tell is about one of the kids that he was in the children's orphanage with that became the youngest serial killer. He started at the age of 8, and by the time he was 16, he had over 60 something bodies. I'm gonna tell the story. I'm also gonna tell y'all the story about what Mike Tyson had to endure in this children's orphanage with this man. Y'all don't wanna miss this story, so make sure that you hit my like button, subscribe to the channel if you're not already a sub to the channel, and let's get it. So Daniel 4-5. Now we gonna get into the area where Mike Tyson comes in this story, but Daniel 4-5, man, this is a crazy story. Like I said, Daniel 4-5, he became the youngest, you gotta call him a serial killer. He became the youngest hitman killer that we've ever heard of. At 5 years old, Daniel's dad would beat him and make him learn how to break down guns, clean guns, and shoot like a marksman. So he was learning this stuff at 5 years old, and by the time he was 8 years old, he knew how to use any gun, he knew how to break down any gun, and I'm talking about this is stuff that you don't hear, 5-year-old kids doing. And he already had the killer's mentality in his brain, but it just got worse. But the thing is he was taught this. This is how he was taught to be from a very, very young age. His dad was a notorious drug dealer, pimp, and a killer himself. His dad's dad, so his granddad, was the same way. So this was generations like this. And this was all Daniel 4-5 was taught. He was taught how to kill. He was taught how to use guns. He was taught how to sell drugs at a very, very young age. So while I'm telling this story, I just want to let y'all know that he didn't know any better. This is what he was basically taught from birth. He didn't know nothing else. We've heard a lot of stories that Mike Tyson's told about his childhood and growing up and being in these different orphanages and things like that. But we ain't really know how deep it got and what he had to endure and what he had to go through and the type of kids that he grew up around. So 4-5 ended up blowing his grandfather's brains out at the age of 8 years old, and he got sent to a boys' orphanage up in Catskill, New York. Now, we all know Catskill, New York for being the birthplace of Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson was in this orphanage boys' home. 4-5, he was sent there from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, because this is where he was from. He was from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, so he was a little kid getting sent all the way to Catskill, New York, and that's where him and Mike Tyson got cool. Now, I'm gonna let y'all hear some of the audio with him talking about when he met Mike Tyson and what he did to get placed in that boys' orphanage.
When I was born, till I was 8 years old, I stayed with my parents in Fort Lauderdale. But when I was 8 years old, and I was put in an orphan home, matter of fact, what happened was my grandfather used to always come to the side of the house and scare everybody. And I took the 12 gauge shotgun and I blew his head off. I was 8 years old, and I was sent to Castell, New York. And that's where I met Mike Tyson at, was in the same orphan home. But he wasn't known as Iron Mike Tyson then. He was just, everybody used to pick on him because he talked it funny. We used to call him names, and he was fight everybody. In the orphan home, used to be a bruise by older people there. There's an older lady named Miss Maddie. She used to beat everybody, beat us and lock us in the closet and stuff like that. Yeah. We pee the bed. She make you stay in your pee, stuff like that.
So y'all heard him talk about some of the things that went on in that orphanage home, back when him and Mike Tyson was in there. Now, he says that him and Mike Tyson, they was in there for about 2 years together, and they got cool, but like he said, Mike Tyson used to get picked on, and that's where Mike Tyson first learned how to fight. He used to get picked on, and so he had to fight a lot. They used to pick on him because he didn't sound like the other kids did. He had a speech impediment. He had a very high voice, but if y'all know how big Mike Tyson was when he was a 10, 11-year-old kid, he looked like a grown man, but he didn't sound like one. He still don't sound like a grown man to a lot of people. You know what I'm talking about? But that just tells you what Mike Tyson had to go through. You heard the man talking about how they used to get abused by older people in the home, how one of the staff members used to lock him in the closet and beat him. When he got out of the orphanage home, because he stayed in it 2 years also, when he got out of the orphanage home, it made him worse. Now, what saved Mike Tyson's life, like a lot of people know, he ended up getting rescued by Customato. He was in there boxing. I don't know if this is the same boys' home where he took up boxing, but Customato discovered Mike Tyson, and then they took him out of the group home system, moving him into their home, and that's where Mike Tyson started getting trained by Teddy Atlas and his father figure, Customato. And they groomed him to be the world heavyweight champion, Iron Mike Tyson, as we knew him as. But we didn't know all the things that he had to go through and endure as a very, very young kid before he got to that stage. Now, Daniel 4-5, he ended up getting out of that boys' home when he was 10 years old, and he went back to Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Now, when he went back to Fort Lauderdale, Florida, he ended up getting connected with the leader of a Jamaican Posse gang. And I believe they was called like the Shower Mob or something like that. They was very notorious in Florida around that time. When they actually did get caught and the gang went down, they was convicted of over 185 murders. So that just lets you know how vicious and notorious this gang was. And Daniel 4-5 at the age of 10 years old to 16 was carrying out a whole lot of the hits for this gang. And with that, he became notorious for carrying out hits for anybody that need a job done in the Florida area. From the age of 10 to 16 years old. Like, this is unheard of. And when he tells the story, he tells that he got worse, from when he was a kid to when he got in that orphanage home. The orphanage home made him much worse because of the things that he had to go through in that orphanage home. So when he got out, his head was messed up even more than it was when he went into the orphanage home. And by this time, he wanted to be a killer. He was fascinated by that. Like, that's what he loved to do. He loved to carry out these hits, and he was making a lot of money doing it. That's what he was fascinated by. Because before he went into the orphanage home, when he did what he did to his grandfather, it was an accident. He always stayed strapped. That's what we gonna call it. He always stayed strapped, even as a little kid. And when his grandfather was jumping out the bushes, scaring everybody, he didn't know. He pulled the trigger and bam, blew his dome off. So that was an accident that he did, so he didn't do that on purpose to his grandfather. Going into that boy's orphanage, it didn't do anything but bad to Daniel, And so Daniel went on, like I said, he went on to murder over and over and over again. And the way that he was able to set these murders up at a very, very young age just lets you know that you can pretty much teach a kid anything if you train him from birth. And it's horrible, man, that he was taught these things. But he had to be very, very smart and intelligent to be able to carry out these hits at a young age like he was. It just lets you know that he had talents and smarts that was wasted on killings. He probably could have been anything that he wanted to be, as smart as he was. But they just raised him wrong. That's what we see a lot with our youth, especially now. They raised wrong, and so they gonna do wrong. But the great thing about this story, and I'm gonna drop the link in here so y'all can hear this story. I left a lot out on purpose so y'all can go watch this, because this is crazy, man. It was very intriguing to watch, very, very interesting. And the great thing about it is Daniel, you know, man, when he got out, he ended up doing 29, almost 30 years. When he got out, man, he changed his life around. Of course, he changed his life around in prison. He did 15 years on death row. You know what I'm saying? He did 15 years on death row. But when he finally got out after 30 years almost, he changed his life around. He got a job. Now he's a manager at U-Haul. He's a pastor, a minister at a church. And man, this is just a hell of a story. And y'all got to go watch this story. I want to share this with y'all. Drop a comment in the comment section. Let me know what y'all think about this. I want to hear from y'all. How do y'all think Mike Tyson would have turned out if Customato and his family hadn't came and grabbed Mike Tyson and got him out of the home? Make sure that you hit my like button, subscribe to my channel if you're not already a sub, and go watch this. Like I said, I'm going to drop the link in there for y'all so y'all can go check it out. And y'all already know how I do. There you go, talking that boxing again, and I'm gone.